It's time for the CollectionDX review. I'm looking at the recently released Transformers masterpiece Wheeljack. And this was a highly anticipated figure, and I was pretty excited to get him. And, well, you can see he's a fully licensed Lancia Stratos Turbo with all the proper markings of the original racing car. Looks very, very nice. He's got lots of paint with that very Italian livery on the figure. Very, very solid. He feels very dense. He's not any heavier than the other Masterpiece cars, but just the way he transforms, it feels like he's a little more substantial, if you kind of know what I mean. He's got the lovely red rims in there. And pretty basic overall. There's his pistol that can store neatly on the underside. And he's even got little painted taillights, which I don't even know if those worked on the actual rally car, or whatever kind of car this is. Anyway, so he's about 6 inches long in car mode. Very similar size to the other Masterpiece cars. I'm just going to bring out the Prowl and Sideswipe, or Lambor here, for comparison. He's a little bit wider though, so towards the back. So he definitely feels, again, a little more substantial than either of these, even though he's, again, about the same weight. No die cast, they're all plastic, but, you know, they are really nice looking. One thing, though, is Wheeljack is not fully painted. The white is actually just the plastic, unlike, say, Prowl here, who was fully painted. I don't know if they ran into some cost issues or just problems with trying to get all the white paint on here, but, you know, he still matches pretty well. I mean, it's a different kind of white anyway, so he looks pretty good. Alright, and there isn't a whole lot else you can do with the vehicle mode, except you can stick his little launcher on top there. And the thing with this launcher is that it doesn't fire, but you can push the missile out and detach it, because that would happen in the show sometimes. And it's very simple. It's kind of like with Sideswipe, there's a little moving panel just kind of right in the middle here. And you just line it up, pop it down until it snaps in, and now you've got a Lancia Stratos with a silly looking gun on the top. Alright. And it's easy enough, you just kind of pop it back off. And one final note about vehicle mode before we move on to the transformation. The side mirrors here are actually separate parts. You in fact get 2 pairs that you just have to take off a little sprue and stick on there. And I appreciate this because on a guy like Prowl here, the windows are in a very precarious position during the transformation, and you feel like maybe you might break them if you're not careful. But on here, they kind of anticipated that, and they just gave you 2 pairs in case, one pops off, one breaks, so you lose one. So, anyway, really, really great looking. And actually, before I change, I wanted to show you, I didn't actually have a G1 Wheeljack as a kid, but I totally had this little die-cast Lancia Stratos, which I pretended was my Wheeljack. So yeah, looks pretty good, very authentic looking, a lot less bulky than the old G1 toy. So anyway, let's take a look at the transformation. So with Wheeljack's transformation, he feels kind of simple, but he also feels like really, really clever. And well, let's just kind of get into it. So the first thing you're going to do is you're just going to start to work his feet out. And there's basically a couple of like embedded hinges in here, like double hinges. And this whole thing can get worked out. It's really kind of tight the first time you're doing it, so be aware of that. There's a pair of tabs on either side here. They just kind of dislodge, like right there. And you can kind of start to bring some of this back. And there's a couple of tabs in the whole like windshield assembly that pegs into his legs, and this part's kind of tight, I gotta say. It was on mine. So you just kind of grab it and pull it out. Now what you can do from here is there's both a joint here that's going to swing out, and also the legs actually extend outward. And it's kind of you trying to work both of these to get him to cooperate, more or less. You can also just kind of separate the legs as you're doing this. So, let's see. Here's how this all kind of starts to come out, and you've got this very nice joint here. And the legs, you just pull it, and you've got his little legs. I feel like you haven't seen just like basic extending legs on these masterpieces. So where his feet, now this panel here actually flips around, and now you've got a heel. Very simple, very easy. Now the doors, what happens is they basically untab from up here, and they just start to move down on this double hinge here. And as you're doing it, you kind of want to make sure that this panel here is out. And basically you're going to want to, this one's tight on mine, but you're going to pull this down, and this whole thing just comes down, and there's actually a peg that goes into a hole, a little screw hole on the bottom. And you can put that in there, although again mine's really tight, so it just sort of stays in there anyways. Alright, so do it again on this side, just kind of pull it down, make sure that little block is in the right place. Alright, here we go. Now he's got a lovely pair of legs. I'm going to take a little cut, and we're going to take a look at transforming the upper body, which is a little difficult. So Wheeljack's upper body is where things get really interesting. This is where like a lot of that clever engineering comes into play. So I'm just going to pop his little pistol off, and you're going to pull this panel down, and it detaches from what are his wings. Now be mindful of the wings during this transformation. So what you're doing is you're actually lifting this panel up next, and this basically comes off. There's a couple of tabs and go into sides of the car, and now you've got his arms right here. Now the thing about this panel here, it's actually got a bit of a spring on it, so it actually wants to keep closing up if it can be, oh, that's not springing right. That's weird. Anyway, so this panel, it kind of like moves weirdly on its own. You can see there's a spring on it right there. So now you've got this, and this is a good time to open up his chest. Now kind of be careful with these edges here. I don't know, mine seems to make a weird snap when you're doing it. So this lets you bring up his head, and the whole thing just kind of flips up. And then you just bring this back and make sure that this tab on the end of the neck plate is clear, so it can line up with the little slot, his chest there. So we're kind of getting together. So with his wings, you actually need to just make sure this is out of the way, and you need to just push the wings up. They kind of click up. They've got like one position, so they click up like that, and then you can start to like rotate the wings a bit. So you gotta just get them out the side there, and watch this thing because there's that tab on the end there. And it's just, this is like the most annoying part, is just getting the wings out of the way. So they're out of the way, and you just kind of bring the two parts of the car together like this, and now you've got his body. And just kind of, let's adjust this. And with this panel under here, you just want it to be in a position where it'll go into the cavity, like right up in here. So you're going to be bringing this whole assembly up in. There's actually slots here for little tabs on the end of the windshield, and just kind of work it into the right position. And one thing with this little double hinge here is that you want this part to be kind of flat at the end, basically flat like that, so that you actually have the clearance to get this all together. And there you go, here's his upper body, and you can kind of adjust his wings into the proper position again. And this, it actually has a little tab on the swing arm that just goes into a small slot on his body right here. And oh yeah, this is the part that springs. Forgetting what I'm doing here. Anyway, so now you just got his arms, and it's pretty easy, because all you do is you move this, the part of the spoiler, and then you just flip out his hands, and just kind of readjust everything until he looks like Wheeljack. Alright. Here we go. That's Wheeljack's transformation. So let's take a look at his robot mode a little more in depth after this. And so here we have Wheeljack in his robot mode. He's about 7 inches tall from his feet to the tip of his wings up here. And he looks great. It's a real testament to the designers at Takara Tomy that they can actually get a character who wasn't really as exact between toy and cartoon model to look this good, considering that he still has to transform. Really, the only like major extra bits are just like doors on the backs of his legs and bits of the car that you didn't really see in the cartoon. But it all like looks really good. It's all very nice and compact, and the details are very nice on him. And again, he's about 7 inches tall, so he scales pretty well with the other Masterpiece cars. He's slightly taller, but you know, he's within the right size range. And I always felt that the character was a little bit older than the other one, so it makes sense that he's just a little bit bigger than the Young Warrior guys. So anyway, again, Wheeljack just feels a lot more substantial because his transformation isn't quite as complex, but you know, that just means he just feels more solid. I don't know, he just feels really good. So as we look at his articulation, let's start off looking at his little head here. You know, you don't really have like the light up ears or anything like that, but his head looks pretty good. Very nice, authentic Wheeljack head. He's got a neck joint like this just so he can look up and fly around with his shoulder cannon mounted as well. Just remember to put that in there. This actually doesn't really like fit in too tightly, so just kind of be careful there. Again, it just has its own little joint to kind of angle up a little bit as he's like flying through the air, because again, he did that in the show. And you might have heard rumors there actually is like a weird mustached face underneath his mask if you unscrew his head. So that's a weird Easter egg. I'm not really sure what it's referencing. Some people are saying that it's based on the animated version. Some are saying that there's actually other like mustached Wheeljack faces in other like Wheeljack toys like Energon and Downshift. So I don't know what's going on there, but one thing I do like that I think is an intentional Easter egg, if you turn his head around, you've got kind of like the eyeless look that the original toy had, where actually this was the face. This thing right here was like a visor. He didn't actually have the eyes like in the cartoon. So I think that's kind of cool. They worked that into the design. So with the rest of the articulation, he's got a full free-moving waist joint. Very, very free hip joints because he doesn't have a skirt, so really only limited by the upper body parts. His hips can go out like this. He's got a thigh swivel. He's got very nice ankle, or knee joints, sorry. His ankles are really good because they can go all the way out like this. And obviously you have this whole transformation joint in here too if you want to give him more of an outward toe motion. But I kind of tend to keep this close because I don't really want that gap between his foot and his upper leg, or his lower leg there. So that's kind of his feet, and he's very stable thanks to those little like heel struts right there, so it works pretty well. Arms are pretty basic. He's got the full like universal jointage here, and he's got a nice elbow joint, bicep swivel, you know, basically all that. Hands, you've got the wrists and opening fingers, which is there so that he can grip his little pistol as we saw before. And the pistol just kind of gets slotted into his palm. Gonna have to work it in there. It's a very tight grip on the pistol. So there we go. And this was a pistol design seen in like a couple of times during the show. So it actually is official canon and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he's a really great figure overall. The only thing that really concerns me is just like his wings during the transformation, because when you put him back into car mode, it can be difficult to get these to bend, to get them so you can get all the clearance between when you're doing the halves of his car mode. One thing I noticed is that when they're like down like this, they don't actually want to bend up, so you actually have to leave them like this during the conversion back into car mode. It's like you do this, you click them like that, and then you move them into position to get them all set for car mode. Or actually, no, I mean actually in car mode you can actually just work all this around the other way and then leave them flat entirely without actually moving them. It's weird. You can tell I'm getting kind of confused just thinking about it. But yeah, it's he's cool. He's really, again, really solid and just very, very nice looking. It's good that they put all this effort into a character who really didn't have repaint potential until recently. But yeah, I think this is pretty good. He's just very unique looking, and I'm glad because he never really had like a reissue of the original toy. For the longest time, the most G1 Wheeljack you could get was the Action Master, which yeah, he's got purple on him for some reason. Or is that kind of a nice? I don't know what color that is. But anyway, this has been Andrew of CollectionDX.com looking at Masterpiece Wheeljack, who's pretty cool. Anyway, hopefully we'll have some more masterpieces to look at in the future.